The Canon 6D Mark II is here, so let's talk about it. So the 6D finally got an update, and now we have the Canon 6D Mark II. Now before I begin, I would first like to make it clear that I have never held a 6D Mark II in my hands before and actually experienced it, so all my thoughts and opinions I'm speaking of today are entirely based on what I've seen from the internet, and the reason is very simple, and that is because Canon never invites me to try out any of their new products. So anyway, in my opinion, the Mark II is a very significant upgrade compared to the 6D. Honestly speaking, I didn't even bat an eye on the original 6D because it seemed so unwelcoming, but the Mark II definitely is going to turn quite a few heads, including mine. Now, probably the most obvious update on the Mark II is the flip screen. It's quite a big deal because it is a full-frame DSLR and it will now be the one and only and the first Canon full-frame DSLR that has an articulating screen, and that is wonderful. It is also a touch screen and it's your standard 3-inch screen. Now, a bit of theorizing on the articulating screen. Canon's best DSLRs, the 5Ds and the 1Ds, all do not feature a articulating screen, and if you go to the official webpage of the 6D Mark II on Canon UK's website, one of the first thing Canon shoves in your face is they want you to know that the 6D Mark II is in fact weather sealed. Now, the general assumption is that articulating screens are really hard or impossible to fully weather seal, and on the 6D we see it has an articulating screen and it also has weather sealing. Now, if Canon has the technology to weather seal the hinges on an articulating screen, then why is it not also present on the rather recent 5D Mark IV? Now, it could either be a business tactic, or you can probably assume that the 6D Mark II has inferior weather sealing compared to that on the 5D Mark IV. So that's the problem about Canon weather sealing. They just tell you it's dust and drip proof. There's no rating for how robust the weather sealing is. So aside from the screen, the 6D II also has dual pixel CMOS AF. Quite expected, but it's a really nice feature to have. I think Canon should really just include this as standard for all their future cameras because I personally think dual pixel AF is amazing. So that's a really nice feature for video. It can also do video at 60 frames per second at 1080p Full HD. No 4K, however. I mean, I'm honestly not surprised that Canon did not put 4K on the 6D Mark II because what were you expecting from Canon? But honestly, I sort of saw this coming. I really wasn't expecting to see Canon put 4K in the 6D Mark II. Like, don't get me wrong, having 4K would definitely be awesome, but it's Canon. What do you expect? If they did include 4K though, I would be quite pleasantly surprised. But something new we have not seen before is a 5-axis digital IS for video on the 6D Mark II. So it's sort of like having warp stabilizer built into your camera. However, like I said earlier before, I have never actually picked up a 6D Mark II and actually shot with it, so I cannot tell you how good is this new 5-axis digital IS. It's digital, that means nothing physical actually moves. It takes the image and processes it to look more stable. However, in theory, and this is the case for any sort of digital image stabilization, it will impose some sort of crop onto your image. But then again, I have never seen it for myself, like I said, so take it with a grain of salt. But there is an extremely high chance that enabling digital IS will impose a crop onto your image. And let's have a look at your conventional viewfinder autofocus system. It has a massive upgrade over the original 6D. So the original 6D had only 11 autofocus points with 1 cross type, and the new 6D has 45 AF points and all of them are cross type. So Canon just went from 1 cross type AF point to 45. That escalated quickly. So that's wonderful, and the low light capabilities, I cannot comment on that yet until I've seen some sample photos from the 6D Mark II. It's too early to say. The maximum shutter speed on the 6D Mark II, however, is still at a 1/4000th of a second. So that's in the ballpark of entry-level cameras. Most professional DSLRs have it capped at 1/8000th of a second, and the flash sync speed is also maxed out at 1/180 of a second, which is not amazing, but should be good enough for general use. Viewfinder coverage is also only 98%, not a 100% accurate viewfinder, but the continuous shooting speed went from 4.5 frames per second to 6.5 frames per second, which is pretty reputable. So I have the 5D Mark III here and the 80D here. The 5D Mark III does 6 frames per second, so the 6D Mark II is actually 0.5 FPS faster than the 5D III. And the ATD does 7 frames per second, so it's exactly between the speed of these two. So this is 6, and this is 7. Whoops. And this is 7. So it's somewhere between and in terms of connectivity, the 6D Mark II has Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS, NFC, and at this point, I'm just waiting for Canon to release a new DSLR that has 4G LTE and comes pre-installed with Instagram. So where does this put the 6D Mark II? Now, so far, what it seems like to me is the 6D Mark II is a very versatile, all-rounded multi-purpose camera that is small and lightweight. So it also seems to me that the 6D Mark II is very much just like a full-frame version of the ATD, which is good because I really love the ATD. And I also can definitely see the 6D Mark II being an awesome vlogging camera. Vlogging, vlogging, there was a pretty interesting debate in the comment section of my previous video about how it should actually be pronounced, but for now I'm gonna stick with vlogging because it seems to annoy the least amount of people. Let me know in the comments how it should actually be pronounced. Now in my kit, I have the Canon 5D Mark III and also the ATD, but if I were to shoot a vlog, I would almost always go with the ATD. Because in my opinion, there are 3 key factors to selecting a vlogging camera, and number 1 is it should have an articulating screen for the simple reason that it allows you to frame yourself when you are recording, and number 2 is it should have some form of autofocus in video mode, because when you are filming like this, it's pretty much very impractical to pull focus yourself. So you should have some sort of autofocus to help you with that. Plus, if you don't have the articulating screen, as mentioned in point 1, it's practically impossible for you to check focus. So you could be filming all day long and then you realize everything was out of focus. And number 3 is it should be small and lightweight, because if you're vlogging, you will be holding up your camera for long periods of time. So your camera should be small, portable, and lightweight, so it's easier to bring around, and you really don't want to tire yourself out that quickly, which will happen if your camera is very heavy. So the 6D Mark II fits the bill for all these 3 things. It has a flip screen, it has dual pixel CMOS AF, and it is Canon's most lightweight full-frame camera. So now if you want to vlog comfortably with a full-frame camera, you can. Now I also kind of find it sad that cameras with an articulating screen are generally being associated as being cheap entry-level cameras. That is not true. There are countless times when I'm shooting with the 5D and I wished it had an articulating screen. It is such a lifesaver when you're filming at odd angles, and it's also especially helpful for video, so people who want to film on full frame would definitely appreciate the 6D Mark II. Because with an articulating screen, you can hold and operate the camera at a comfortable height and simply tilt the screen up so you can see it clearly. Without this, you will almost always have to film and pull focus like this, and it's a really uncomfortable and tiring posture. So those are my thoughts and first impressions of the 6D Mark II. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think of this newly announced camera? Was it a complete letdown for you, or is it the camera that you've been waiting for quite some time? So that's pretty much it for today, everybody. Any questions in the comments, drop them below. So that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.